Is anybody going to join us is the question, because if I don't put out a note, maybe people won't.
Well, we could wait for a few minutes and see
I
what
can
happens.
also just go to do a new note.
Well, we did say we were going to be probably fashionably late tonight. We're only 5 minutes.
Well, you keep talking because people are...
we don't know if peeps are there or not, but if you are, we're going to be with you. We're just going to put out a little note so people know that we're there. We're going to read the next chapter in Moon Magic tonight. And even if you don't show up, we're going to do it because we're going to record it. So later on, we can put it all together in one big, long, hours-long video, the whole story all together. And then once we read all 4 of the novels, we will start our workbook together. And this way, all the novels will be recorded and people can go and listen to them and participate in the workbook if they want to. So let's see if anybody's there. You know, Mercury retrograde.
Pardon my French.
We're even later. We thought we'd be right about on time, but we're even later because, of course, it's Mercury in the shadow of the retrograde, and the barcode printer didn't want to print. And, of course, we got a whole entire order of crystals in today. We got some really beautiful...
If you work for Allensby, I'd just like to say that we actually think you suck.
Was that worth interrupting my nice little talk about
No,
crystals?
but they are... What? Keep going, though. So I'm sorry.
We got some beautiful apatite and fluorite and moss agate and tree agate and just a lot of really beautiful crystals. So come on out over the next few days and you can see those.
Just one more thing to do and then people will know.
Well, I would think the people who follow us would get a notification that we're live, wouldn't they?
Well, they will now. Oh, it's Beaver Book Club.
Anyway.
Keep going.
Well,
Keep going.
I don't know what else to say, really. Come out on Saturday for our Mari Lloyd wassail at Bad Seed. It's going to be fun. I'm just watching. He's putting this up. So.
Why won't you?
There you go.
Why does everything have to be so stupid?
Because it's trying to stress you even more. But I don't take to the stress anymore.
Good.
I just say F the tormentors.
Well,
and
yeah.
do what we got to do.
Just bear with me. Oh, hang on. I need to turn that down.
There, Wendy's there, see?
Well, that's good. Let me just do this. I'm going to grab that share thing, copy there.
Oh my goodness.
Go
Wendy, just be
here.
patient. We'll be there shortly. But I'm not taking any more stress. I don't care. I'm here to read the book, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yes, that's what we are going to do. We're going to start in but seconds. That can go, that can go, that can go, and that should bring us back to there. And there you
there's
go.
Wendy. All right.
Marvellous. And I will blow my nose at this point as well. I'm so sorry.
All right.
How can you be both simultaneously dehydrated and have a nose that runs like mad?
No, my hair is just doing its own thing today. Again, the static for some reason is crazy. All right. Part 2. The Moon
Part
Priestess.
2. Tell your friends, yes.
O thou that didst with pitfall end with gin, beset the road I was to wander in. Thou wilt not with predestination round enmesh me and impute my fall to sin. Okie dokie.
Shut up, Skittle.
Chapter 4. I'm not absolutely sure how old I am, but I think I'm about 120.
Oh my
At
God.
any rate, I have lived long enough to see the things for which I worked come about. It is for this reason I think I shall go soon. There was a time when I was regarded as the priestess of all evil. A certain wise man said that every step forward in morality must always be immoral to start with. Anyway, that time is long past, and the crimes of Martaban are chaste in Clapham nowadays. I expect in due course I shall be identified with the principle I am exemplified and worshipped as a goddess. For who I am, to expect to escape the universal fate of the light bearers. At any rate, the world I live in today is as free from nervous disease as the world in which I did my work. That was free. It is civilized parts of typhus and plague and cholera, improved mental hygiene like improved physical hygiene, clearing up the dirt and diseases. I was recognized even in my day if a man lived in insanitary conditions, he could not expect to be healthy, and still less could he expect to rear a normal child. But we were little realized the insanitary conditions in which the vast majority of people led their emotional lives. To read of them today is like reading an account of working class conditions in the hungry 40s. Well, she should try where we are 100 years later. We ask how such things could be endured, but people will accept this inevitable anything they are used to, never dreaming that is due to ignorance and bad management. I was born at a time when a repressive morality was in full force and still serving its purpose. In those days, women were divided into two classes, the sheltered, protected women who suffered from the vapors, and unsheltered, unprotected women who suffered from many things, some of which are unprintable.
Oh my.
I was born into the sheltered class, but poverty forced me into the other, and I suffered. Such was the first stage of my apprenticeship. My father, as a family name of Lefay indicates, was a Gaelic extraction with Breton blood in his veins.
Celtic.
My mother was that of the strange pre-Celtic with a K strain that lingers in the remote valleys and mountains of the Mass Mid-Wales. Some say these people were Phoenicians, but that is incorrect. They were older than the Phoenicians. They were Atlanteans, drawn to these metal-bearing islands by trade.
Metal-bearing.
And surviving when the parent country was cut off by catastrophe.
Wow. Well, you often thought the Celts were Atlanteans.
Well, I think the ancient Druids were Atlanteans, yes.
They are a strange folk, set apart even to this day by a remoteness of soul, for they do not, I think, fully belong to this world. Excuse me. And the Bretons, too, are another world people, and the faith of Karnak lives on in their hearts to a much greater extent than is expected. These two strains crossed produced me. They were normal enough until they were crossed, and then they produced me. To add to the complications, I was supposed to have died when a baby. I was declared dead, and lay dead many hours on my mother's lap, for she could not be persuaded to lay me down, and then, at dawn, I revived. But the eyes that looked up at my mother, she told me many years afterwards, when I asked her the cause of my strangeness, were not the eyes of a child, and she knew with the unerring instinct of a mother that I was not the same one. I was never young. Even in those days I had the same mind that I have now, but with an emotional outlook of a child. And with such a mind I could never be a child with children. And the adults of that day were a hostile race. Moreover, we were gentle people who had become poor, and we saw at its worst the workings of the class system of the time. So although... Excuse me. Try not to have a coughing fit. So although I was a friendly child, eager for play and companionship, I was forced back on myself and compelled to solitude. This I believe to be the prerequisite for that which was to follow, for it is only by turning within that one can find the inner path, and those whose fate destines them for that path are prevented from turning outward and finding their place in life, just as the feet of the Chinese child are bound. It is a painful process at the time, but the result is a personality that can be used for the purpose for which it is designed, being free from attachments and inured to solitude. Such, I believe, is the law of the higher path, for I have many times watched it at work. To those who are accustomed to find happiness in their attachments and conceive of no other kind, it may appear a melancholy lot, but once the fact of detachment has been accepted, life opens up in the most marvellous manner. Only one must be very careful never to form ties, for they invariably have to be broken. Yet, by a strange paradox, one has an extraordinary richness of experience, for one may enjoy anything as long as one does not become dependent upon it. And it is an old saying that an innate possesses nothing, but has use of everything.
So this is kind of like the Highlander. I shall live forever.
Wilfred Maxwell has told the story of my beginnings and how I found the inner path, so there is no need for me to tell it again. He has also told me of the experiment we worked together, but what he has not told, for he could not know, was the way in which that experiment appeared to me.
That I will now tell as briefly as may be, for it is the prelude to what is to follow. I had traveled some distance down the inner path and had developed my psychism to the point where it was reliable as psychism is ever likely to be. That is to say, I could trust in the matters in which I had no personal concern. I was also well acquainted with the theory of philosophy of the secret teachings, as it has come down to be with us by tradition. But there is a big difference between the psychic and the adept, for the psychic is a psychic and nothing more, but the adept, to be worthy of that name, must not only be psychic, but a magician. That is to say, he must be able to wield the powers of the spirit objectively as well as subjectively. When I met Wilfred Maxwell, I was what is called an adeptus minor. I had not made the transition. I used Wilfred's faith in me to establish my own confidence in my magical powers, for if one believes in them, one can use them, and if one does not believe in them, one cannot use them. And as a skeptical, rational person, like myself, does not find it easy to believe in such things until they have been put to the test and found to work, and paradoxically they will not work unless one believes in them, for one is all the time receiving negative suggestion from one's own incredulity. And, by the same token, breaking up the astral forms as fast as one can make them. But when I made Wilfred, who had faith, seen an astral form by means of suggestion, his faith held him steady for me to see. This is a subtle and useful point in practical working, and I offer it to those who appreciate it. There are not many people who know these things, or, if they know them, would tell them. I made Wilfred see me as I wanted to be, and by this means I built up a magical personality. A magical personality is a strange thing. It is more like a familiar than anything else, and one transfers one's consciousness to it as one does to an astral projection, until finally one identifies oneself with it and becomes that which they have built. Then, having used Wilfred, I left him, but not until I had put him in touch with the cosmic forces. I remember coming into London at the peak hour of traffic. I came in by an unfamiliar route and lost my way in a great tangled borough of Surreyside, where all the streets look a bit alike, but are pushed askew by the winding of the river, and one loses all sense of direction. The only landmark I had was the great chimney of Dalton's factory, which I knew would guide me to the bridge I wanted. But the twisted streets would not run as I wished, for that part of the world is a mass of cul-de-sacs owing to the railway.
Well,
suddenly,
I saw ahead of me at the end of the street. Thank you, Skittle. She is going to get suitable guidance
I
when we're done.
suggest she has trashed something.
I think so. Hopefully it's not badly broken.
Mm.
I suddenly saw ahead of me at the end of the street the leaden grey surface of the river. Thinking that this would be the Albert Embankment, unknown country, I made for it only to find myself in the oddest little forgotten village in the world, looking across the water at the ragged skyline of the mean streets of Pimlico. It was not a slum hut, excuse me, in fact, intensely respectable. Every little house had a little front garden, and without exception they all had lace curtains to their windows, and the number of the gates bore brass plates to the effect that sweeps, undertakers, midwives, and such folk lived there. It proved to be another cul-de-sac, however, and I had to turn perilously on a tumble-down wharf at its end and retrace my route to the right-angled turn. In that angle stood a small and dismal church, black as a London cat with accumulated grime.
Aw.
Its upper windows protected from stone throwing by closely woven wire screens, its lower ones by heavy wrought iron grills, its door a massive oak affair studded with great nails. It looked in fact like a miniature private fortress disguised under the cloak of religion. I have never seen a more forbidding facade. It might have been a prison of the Inquisition. Wow. To complete the picture of neglected gloom, and a to let board drooped in front of it. This surprised me, for I believed that once a church, always a church, and that ecclesiastical property could not be sequestrated. But this church had apparently been too much even for the ecclesiastical authorities, and they wished to be rid of it. It looked to me as if it might be badly haunted. I got across the river at last and found myself in civilized parts once more. I was glad to be back, and my little home in the hayloft looked very welcoming, with its large fire and deep divans piled with innumerable cushions and all the soft, rich, dark colours that I love. The flat seemed strangely alien, although I'd only been absent a few months. I could tell that my life had already withdrawn from it, and that I should not be putting up any roots that I left there. But that did not make me any happier, but rather the contrary, for I felt alien and alone and homeless. And atmospheres have always meant a great deal to me. They have meant, perhaps more than persons, more owing to the law of aloneness under which I live. I was glad, on the whole, that the atmosphere of the flat was dead, for I had been dreading the parting, fearing that I would feel as if I were abandoning some humble friend whose help I had climbed, for this was the first settled home I had ever known. We can make it to the end of the chapter, I'm sure.
I think so. It's quite a lot of...
Well,
Anyway.
it's lengthy, but I think people are having difficulty connecting tonight because I see people come and disappear and come and disappear and come and disappear.
I'm
So
telling you, things have just been really...
Mercury retrograde styly
things
run
have
up
been
to
really strange also on Facebook.
yes. Well,
Like
one
you
wonders
can't see
what's going
things.
on, but such is life. Maybe you can watch it
Anyway.
later, hopefully.
All right. But it does not do the sentimental over either places or person upon the path. It does not do to be, sorry. It does,
Excuse me.
all right. But it does not do to be sentimental over either places or persons upon the path. The days of my training were finished, and I was changing over from the lesser to the greater mysteries. What I had learnt, I now had put into practice. The law by which I live is so strange that unless I tell something of it, no one will understand what follows. Many tales have been woven round the theme of the black cloak adept with mysterious powers, appearing from nowhere in response to some call for help, and disappearing equally mysteriously after help had been given. But no one, not even Bluer Luton,
Whoever that may be.
who could have done so, has told the story from the adept's point of view, showing why he came and why he went and what he really did. This, then, is what manner of person an adept is. There are those who are concerned with the inner governance of the world, not its politics and wire pulling, but with the secret spiritual influence that rule the mind of men. Behind them are those greater than they, who are concerned with the elemental forces and the influence of the rule of the aeon. These are to those others as the tides are to the breaking waves. Then upon the physical plane are those who sent through the incarnation to cooperate with them. They are sometimes spoken of as initiates, and they are that, but also something more than that. They must, of course, be initiated into a tradition, otherwise they would not have the keys to the contacts and would not be able to command cooperation. There are, of course, also initiates who become adepts, and I am speaking now of what are called the cosmic adepts, and they come for a purpose, and all their time until maturity is given to preparing their personality as an instrument for that purpose. It would be cruel training if there were not one within the inner awareness which knows whence one comes, and why, as I had known, even as a child, that I was a stranger, a sojourner, and I did not belong. Therefore things did not hurt as they would hurt others, but one is always alone, for they are very few with whom to find companionship, and because one is strange, one is hated. Then there comes the time when the transition must be made from one mode of consciousness to the other, when we learn that how to use the instrument we have wrought for the purpose for which it has been designed. And that instrument is our own human personality. It is a strange thing to stand back from one's own personality and use it, and not easy to do. Those of us who come in thus have been trained and made in such previous life, and I always have been a priestess of the Great Mother. Such male incarnations as I have been negligible and mostly violent and unhappy.
Oh dear.
But a priestess I have been, and a great one, right down from the days of Atlantis. For the higher grade, the earlier the initiation, and I was one of those who served in the courts of the great Sun Temple in the city of the Golden Gates in the island of Ruta.
Well, she's not at all, modest at this
Old
point.
soul business there.
We're at least 5 minutes behind on our stream here. I don't know why. I think there's something weird going on. So hopefully people can sort it out. It was I who was sent away before the end, when they were taking out the seed bearers for the next epoch. And I saw the great sea Atlantis, I saw from the sea great Atlantis go down in the final catastrophe that ended it all. Then my soul became affiliated with the group soul of Egypt, and I came in and out through the doors of the royal house, down through all the Egyptian dynasties. I was never one of those who sat upon the throne, but I was a mysterious figure that came and went in the background of the temples. I was in the cult of the Black Isis, which is very different from that of the green-robed goddess of nature to whom women prayed for children. They represent her with a human face, or horned like a cow, but the Black Isis is the veiled Isis, upon whose face none may look and live. And I became a represent, and because I represent her, I too veiled and cloaked, and have never lost the habit to this day. I do not like people to look upon my face in bright light, and if I must show it, I must show it masked in laughter and animation. Very few have seen my face in repose, for repose is a transparent mask. Some equate the Black Isis with Kali, and some say that she is evil, but I do not think she is, unless one counts elemental force as evil, which I do not. She's indeed the breaker in pieces, but then she sets free. She's also most ancient life, and people feared the primordial as they fear nothing else. Freud knew that. She is a reservoir of tremendous and dynamic force, and when dynamic force comes welling up, that is she. I broke Wilfred, and he rose like a phoenix, reborn from the ashes of his dead life, and knew great Isis. I slew him and gave him birth. That is not evil unless you reckon pain as evil, and I do not. For pain brings power, and destruction is freedom. Interesting. I do not think there is any such thing as innate evil. What men call evil is simply misplaced force. Some define good as that which perseveres, and evil as that which destroys. But destruction can be cleansing and purifying. For there is such a thing in both men and races as spiritual constipation, which comes from too much preservation of the status quo. So I came back to the world, yes, once again, as the priestess of the great goddess, bringing with me the memory of forgotten arts, one of which is the art of being a woman. I came because I was sent. There was that needed which I had to give. They did not send in a priestess of the bright Isis, but the dark and veiled one, because that was the need. And they said to me, "You will have tiger teeth, for you will be a breaker in pieces. Men will call you the priestess of all evil, but you know better."
Well, this was written, I think, around the same time as Blavatsky was writing Isis Unveiled.
Maybe.
So I came in at the dawn of a new aeon. There were those who had gone before me who had watched over the breakup of the old world. They had been armed and mailed great sworded. Armed and mailed like chainmail.
Chainmail,
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine that's what it is.
Great sworded ones. But I was unarmed except for the weapons of a woman. I had only my woman's personality, which with to work. And I had to create and build it as if it were a work of art, and I worked on myself like a sculptress. It was an odd sensation to feel two aspects of myself merging and finally uniting. In the earlier stages, I would either be in the conscious or in other. I would slip into the wider consciousness, returning upon waking, but able to bring through more than a faint shadowy memory of the dreams. Twice in crisis that might have destroyed the physical personality I was so laboriously building, I united my two selves momentarily, but the child mind could not stand more than a brief uniting. Life was difficult enough as it was. With adolescence, everything closed down, for no mind could stand the double strain. Then, when I stabilized with maturity, it began to open again, and I was conscious of the overshadowing. For by this time, the focus of my being had been fully transferred to the physical body. Familiar with the language of spiritualism, I thought of this as overshadowing as a spiritual control, but gradually I became aware that it was simply my own higher self, and still more gradually I learned to rely on it. My two selves have never been permanently in me, for no human physique could stand that, nor could I invoke my higher self at will, but I know how to make that conditions that cause it to come in. Unfortunately, that is a thing in which I was always in need of help. I cannot do it single-handed. Someone has to see the goddess in me, and then she manifests. I am not the goddess, but I am a priestess of the goddess, and she manifests through me. For all women are Isis. Not many can see the goddess manifest, and those who can see it, not all can bear it. And then they hate me because they fear her. I have been much hated in my life. It's pretty wild, isn't it? Much hated in my life, and I likewise had more than my fair share of love. As I have already said, Wilfred gave me help that I needed formulating myself to myself. My weapons were now ready, and the next phase of the career lay with the world. I had already passed the age when women can hope to charm by her looks, but the forces that came through me had miraculously recreated me, and I lived with a strange inner vitality that was ageless and deathless and timeless. I was neither young nor old, neither a girl nor a mature woman. People knew I was not young, yet they could not think of me as old.
Interesting. I was simply alive with a vitality that prevented people from seeing me as I really was, that glamoured them into seeing me as the ageless and deathless priestess of great Isis. I knew, moreover, how to set myself against an appropriate background, and when I chose I could wrap my aura about me and pass unseen as a shadow. People sneered at my backgrounds as theatrical and called me a poseuse, which I presume is the female of poser. But I knew that my backgrounds were psychological and my pose was an auto-suggestion. It was to my task to bring certain new concepts to the mind of the race, not to its conscious mind, but to its subconscious mind, and this is done by living them. One who had knowledge once said that an adept must not merely tread the path, but must be the path, and this is true. It was not my task to lecture or write or appear in the public eye as is done by those who speak to the conscious mind of the race, but for the carrying out of my work I required a certain amount of cooperation. Like King Solomon, I required men and materials. The necessary money had to be placed in my hands, and I could always invoke for more if I wanted it, but that in itself was not enough. Mere wealth would not create of its own accord, and the kind of background I needed was not the one that could be entrusted to a professional designer. Moreover, I needed cooperation, and that was even less easy to procure. I needed people with gifts, but they must also have a sense of dedication. I needed people with minds, but pure intellect would not do. They must also have something of the artist within them. I needed, above everything, people with that curious gift of magnetism whom I could use, and I needed, lastly, people on whom I could experiment. But it's not easy to get people to let themselves be used. Little do they know how Isis pays, and I might not tell them. For this is one of the tests of the path, that they shall not bargain. You will remember that a certain man gave all he had to buy the pearl of great price. They give to Isis and she gives to them, but they give as men and she gives as a goddess. Onlookers see the sacrifice that is laid on the altar in an open temple, but they do not see the initiation that takes place behind the veil. They see the candidate go down the grave, into the grave. They do not see the resurrection on the third day. All they ever know of that is what occurs when they learn from those whose courage fails and who turn back. And are they the best judges? I knew that if all I needed would be provided, that I could have drawn through it into manifestation just in proportion as I had faith. Those who were behind me knew what was necessary for the work and had to make provision for it on the inner planes, but I and I alone could draw through it into manifestation on the earth plane.
I can't say that it's any less weird.
Mm.
In proportion as I could realize the powers at my disposal, I could use them. It was said by them of old time that the treasures of earth were in the keeping of the gnomes and the earth elementals, and that there were spells and words of powers that could compel the spirits of the elemental earth to surrender their treasures. And this is true, though not after the manner that the ignorant believe. There is a life of the earth soul, and gold is the blood in its veins, and equates with it that which is on the subtle plane that we call the vital force. It is indeed a social equivalent of energy, and we exchange it for our energy of mind, body, and estate, and use it as a dominator thereof. It is possible to come to terms with the guardians of mineral life, and they will permit access to the unseen fountains of wealth in the earth soul. But this power is possessed only by high initiates, to whom money as money means nothing. For in magic we can only work with the power when free of desire. Desire defeats its own ends, and for its parent of fear. So I, to whom poverty and wealth were all one, had resources placed at my disposal, and I used them to build my magical personality in the eyes of men, and to make them see me as I wished to be seen. So this whole entire chapter we've read so far could be about 3 sentences. But
Could have been.
Okay.
It's a little overly verbose, isn't it? But whatever.
For the once born cannot look into the heart, and only a few of them can interpret the subtle workings of the mind, but one can suggest to them through the eyes what one wishes them to believe. This is better than suggesting by given a spoken word, for they discount it so heavily, being versed in the art themselves. I, for my part, knew how little the true adept needs for his magic, but I had to work upon man's imagination, and for that I needed a stage setting. I had to make them see me as an adept, or I should never have been adept in their eyes. And to this end I had to have about me that which should suggest the great days of the past, when the cult to which I belonged was at the height of power.
You okay? That's you?
The height of power. So that their thoughts being turned thereto, memories might be awakened, and they might come to my wavelength. And so little by little I had collected ancient things from old temples, and these had to be kept in dim light so their magnetism might not be dispersed, but gather about them and pervade the atmosphere as incense pervades it. I also used colors for my backgrounds, knowing their power over the mind, over my mind as well, and over the minds of those who came to visit me. There is a science of colors, and we can classify them in magic under the 10 stations of the heavens, spheres, which are the 7 planets and space, the zodiac and earth. There are also 4 elemental kingdoms, but these are another matter.
Tell you about the elemental kingdoms, eh? For my purpose, I use the opalescent moon colours at the base of silver. The purple that is a plum colour, and the reds that are magenta or maroon, and blues of seawater in the sky at night. Never the strong primaries such as man uses when he is a magus. He always the shadowy blended colours are mine, for I am the shadow in the background. Excuse me. As for my body, I made it to be the instrument of my personality, training it, suppling it, learning its arts and powers. Nature had not been unkind, but she had not been lavish, and I had to make myself something I could use for the purpose I had in hand. Being dedicated, I had the right to ask for what I needed, and I naturally asked for that beauty, which would enable me to hold men's eyes and attention. But instead I was given insight and imagination, and with the knowledge that came from these, I created my own kind of beauty. It was said of another, "She has the face that suits a woman for her soul's screen," and this was true of me. My face was pure Egyptian, slightly high in the cheekbones, which makes my eyes look almost almond-shaped, slightly aquiline to the nose, and there was an Assyrian blood in the royal caste of Egypt. So my eyes are very deep set, which makes them look darker than they really are. Seen in a good light, they are almost green, to match my tiger teeth, it has been said. I am supposed to be like Cleopatra, or perhaps Cleopatra was like me. I have an immense amount of hair that is very dark brown, that is not just quite black. It is perfectly straight, and sometimes I wear it in a knot on the nape of my neck. Sometimes I twist it round my head in a coronet. Sometimes in hot weather I let it hang in 2 plaits down over my breast. Always I wear it parted in 2 smooth crow wings upon my forehead, as the Indian women wear theirs. For this reason people have talked of coloured blood, though my skin should give the lie to that, for it is the white of ivory, or of great magnolia blooms that have no touch of pink in them. I am bold, even rash, in the matter of lipsticks, and I love long earrings. They would seem to require husbandmans to do justice to the earrings. I have possessed jade, amber, coral, lapis, malachite for day, and for night I have great jewels, square-cut emeralds, long, pale, drop-shaped pearls, and all the fires of the different opals which I enjoy, I adore. I am a little taller than middle height, but for my length of limb I could walk straight out of the shop in whatever model gown I might try on. But I never wear model gowns. I wear my own fashion, and have come from the soft furnishings as often as not. For there is a richness in the great breadths of the draperies that one does not find in the dress materials, and who shall say nay if I choose to wear what was meant for the windows of a Venetian palace?
I like my gowns to hang full and straight and lie upon the ground around my feet. I wear soft sandals of silver and gold and iridescent colors. Then I love furs, for I am a cold-blooded creature. It is my one physical weakness. I wear furs, even in the house, and I have my house hot. I love the whole skin of the great wicked head, and I love it to be a noble one, the little one, mean mask of a fox. I have the pale skin of a timber wolf and the blue wolf verging on black, and the great cats I have spotted in the jungle, the leopard and the lovely pale leopards of the snow of the Himalayas, and the Tibetans. They say they are ghosts of bad lamas who died in sin.
Interesting.
I like rings too, so big that I can hardly get my gloves on over them, and bracelets like ferrets on my wrists. My hands are supple with ritual, and I am as bold in my nail lacquer as my lipstick. I have used silver and gold lacquers and reds so dark that they're almost black, and iridescent lacquers that make my nails look like opals, and I wear my nails long to match my tiger teeth.
Wow.
I like my shoes to be very soft and light and supple like gloves rather than shoes, so that I can move in them without sound. I was trained as a dancer in the days of my youth, and I know the meaning of movement, how it should flow like water. I know how my body should swing and balance from the waist, and that this is worth more in beauty than slender line. I am not and never have been a fashionable woman, even with that whole list of things. Not that I decry the fashion. They are for some, but they are not for me. Some say that fashions are artificial, the work of trade, but that is untrue. Fashions change because novelty attracts and stimulates. But I, who am the eternal woman, the archetypical feminine, I do not speak on the surface of consciousness, the sophisticated mind that the novices catch, but I am the archaic, the primordial, the very soul in every man, and I will pit my charm against that of any fashionable woman. They may have lovers, but I have been loved. And I will pit my silence against their speech, yet there is much in a voice, and the tones of a voice, they should be singing ones, even when speaking, sweet and soft on the lips, yet the reverberation behind them. For that reverberation, there is the power, the strange power that beats upon the soul. I know it well, for I have used it. I shall tell you presently how to use it. How much more is there?
I think only one more page, isn't it? Where
This
we
is a
at?
crazy chapter right up here.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. Oh, yeah,
a
no,
few
we're
more pages.
just a
Okay.
couple more pages. For I use colour and movement and sound and light as other women use fashions. But more important than all this is scent. I value scents highly and attach great importance to them, for there is a whole psychology and theology of scents. The scents I employ are spicy and aromatic. The flower odours are not for me. No one has ever likened me to a flower, though I've been told I'm as beautiful as a leopard. Sandal and cedar and Russian leather, these are my favourites. I also love the after odour of burnt musk and the way it clings. Camphor I like too for its cleanliness. Of the essential oils I use geranium, jasmine and attar, none other. These are the psychology of scents, but of the theology there are two I esteem most highly. Galbanum, that is earth of earth, and the sharp stimulus of frankincense, which is if all of the trees of paradise were burning. I have also a taste which I have never found anyone yet to share with me. The smell of iodoform gives me pleasure. I've no idea what iodoform is. Probably like chloroform, who the hell knows?
We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's not weird at all.
Well, I know that
not
frankincense, high-grade frankincense, is called olibanum.
Weird. Olibanum, gallibanum, I don't know what it
that
is, but we'll find out. So much for my personality, or as much of it I can convey in words. The rest must be told by what I do. As to my mundane background, my little home in the hayloft I made when I was poor, and I made it to suit myself. But as I have said, for what lay ahead must have a background that would make people see me as I wanted to be seen, and yet at the same time I did not want to be burdened with elaboration. It was in my mind that the studio flat would serve my purpose, for the studio would give me the space for what I had to do, and an artist's exiguous quarters would be enough for my simple needs, provided I spent money on the bathroom, for I like a nice bathroom. A legacy, perhaps, of my Roman days. I did not easily find what I wanted. After sharp words with the house agent, I decided to advertise, and learnt at the cost of much petrol and the unbelievable optimism of people who have something to dispose of, it seemed strange that the work I had before me should be held up for so simple a thing as a suitable premises, especially as I was not narrowly limited as to money. Upon each previous occasion when I had to find a place for my work, it had come straight to my hand. My hayloft, my fort, both had come like that, as if I held a wishing stone when picturing what I wanted. Yet now, with the real work just beginning, I was as badly off as Noah's raven. I went over again in my mind what I needed. I must have quiet. That was a sine qua non. For the work of the higher magic can be shattered by noise, just as a photographic plate can be spoiled by light.
I must have a place that was readily accessible and yet little off the beaten track, so that people who visited me should not be in any danger of running across their acquaintances. It must possess one large and lofty room in which I could entertain, and another room suitable for use as my private temple, and then such living accommodation as a single woman of simple needs might require, except, of course, the bathroom, which I knew I should have prepared and installed for myself, for I have yet to meet the artist who shares my views on bathrooms. All this seemed simple enough to find, and yet I could not find it. Then suddenly there came to my mind the memory of that dingy little church that had been such a depressing effect on me as I came to it in London at the end of that dreadful drive. I had never seen a property I liked less. But was it possible that this was the destined place that had been waiting for me all those years, while its to-let board gathered the grime, and the other eligible residents, knowing this, had fled at my approach in order to lead it to a clear field? I only hoped this was as impossible as it sounded, but a sense of duty compelled me to give it a chance. It was certainly very suitable as far as position went, in its quiet cul-de-sac beside the river. It was well off the beaten track, for to the people I sought the Surrey side was as remote as the mountains of the moon, yet it was easily accessible, for one only had to cross the neighboring bridge, and one was back in the civilized parts. So I took my little car, and impelled, as I have said, by the strong sense of duty, went down to look at it. I went with the streaming traffic over the Vauxhall Bridge, and found myself in the mysterious land where Wadsworth abuts the Battersea. I had for my landmark the great chimney, standing up like a beacon with its pale plume of smoke, and yet I could find that spot where I took the wrong turning. I could not. The curses was still on me, and the little church offended perhaps my lack of discernment, and hid its face. No one, neither policeman nor postman nor street sweeper, could tell me anything about it, and indeed it was just as well. I had consulted the police earlier in my search, or I am sure I should have been arrested on the suspicious character long before the days was out. So thoroughly did I comb that
dingy district. Comb.
Yep. When at length I gave up as a hopeless and made for Vauxhall Bridge, it was once again the peak hour of the evening's traffic. Having got across the bridge, I turned on Grosvenor Drive.
Grosvenor.
Intending to slip down a street to avoid the congestion on the main roads, and then I saw it. The setting sun was setting low, long level beams across the river to the far bank, and the stained glass of its west window lit up like a jewel.
I turned my car so sharply that I nearly ran over a man who was crossing the road and who, being a cross-grained individual, did not accept my apologies with at all good grace, but told me what he thought of me, in which he was probably quite correct, for I very nearly dispatched him to eternity. Then I told him what I thought of him, and he lifted his hat and said, "I beg your pardon, madam," and I saw that allowances must be made for him, as he had red hair. I had thought for a moment, too, that he was a doctor, and I have a liking for doctors, for a faint waft of eiderfoam came from the car as he stood staring at me angrily, but the old-fashioned double-fronted house he entered bore no brass plate. If he had been a doctor, I think I should have pursued the acquaintance there and then, for there was something about the man that was rather striking, his sense of power and dynamic drive, and it was as such I had in mind to help me in my work. Moreover, a doctor, with his special knowledge, is often very useful in occultism. Perhaps it was just as well I had no designs on this individual, for not only was he in a very bad temper for having been half run over and wholly scarred, but he must have had a deep dour type at the best of times, and encased in the plate armour of middle-class convention and professional prestige. A professional man I judged him to be from his "be damned to you, sir" air when angry, which is not developed by those who serve either God or Mammon. And there you have it.
Well,
Goodness gracious,
that was a rough
bleeding
one.
me.
Yes.
And I apologise if you. It looks like there's been weird stuff because our stream is at least 5 minutes behind. I can see that because as I'm looking at the stream now, Lisa is still reading, and I've just finished reading. So it's kind of interesting. So hopefully you made sense of it. I see people coming on and disappearing and coming on and disappearing. So I think there may be some issues with the Tube of You. So hopefully, I know we've recorded it.
And
so if it's gone for a ball of chalk, we can always put it up from a recording.
Now, but anyway.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like on and off again and on and off again. So thank you so much. What a weird book.
What a weird day.
What a weird day and a weird book.
And it's all good. We'll see you soon.
We will. All right.
Peace.
Peace and bright blessings. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.